What was a time in which a date was going well, but the other person ruined it? I was having a great time, and then my date didn't show up. I went to a speed dating event once where none of the guys showed up. It just turned into a whole girls' night out with free drinks. Imagine being the one guy who shows up. It's heaven or hell depending on the type of guy you are. Haha. The owner of the bar asked his friend to come as a favor, and he just mingled with everyone a little at a time, and eventually, we were all just taking shots. It was a pretty great night. They had a redo and I dressed kind of me, and then the men actually did come and I was so self-conscious of my outfit, I couldn't even enjoy the event and was very awkward. Haha, good times. Never feel self-conscious about the clothing you wear on a date. As long as you're in clothes that are appropriate to go out on a regular occasion, for example, torn sweatpants and a stained shirt aren't good, a reasonable guy will be fine with you wearing normal clothes. If anything, it shows you're comfortable and not overly worried about your appearance, makeup, etc. The exception is if you're going to a fancy restaurant where a guy would be told to wear a suit or something. But that's really not a good first date idea for other reasons. We had dinner and all was going well, and we were wandering down the dark sidewalk engaged in conversation when she walked straight into a signpost that neither of us noticed. I let out one nervous laugh before I could stop it, and she accused me of engineering the event for my amusement. On one of my first dates with my partner, he did the same thing, walked right into a signpost neither of us saw. I looked over to see what just happened and accidentally tripped over the curb and fell. We laughed so hard. Going on 4 years together now, you might say we literally fell in love. Happened twice with two different dudes. One, I met off a site he was nice, if a little awkward, and he couldn't help but show me his Twitch stream gameplays for 25 minutes straight, watching me expectantly. Which might have been okay for a conversation starter actually. I love gaming, but there's only so much of watching someone else's stream with no funny commentary or context one can handle before mentally checking out. Second was a guy with whom we had some playful banter before our date, and he asked me about my kinks, so I told him I liked being choked. When we met up in the parking lot, the dude immediately put me in a WWE chokehold in broad daylight, presumably thinking my panties were gonna drop right then and there. I can assure you they did not. I'm sorry that happened to you, but this is the best comment I've read. Did you go out with Hulk Hogan on a first date? At least if he was, I would have had something to be impressed about. I'm still astounded he had the audacity to go for it with zero warning or indication that he was even going to touch me. For context for anyone else, this dude was over 6 feet, and I'm pretty much 5 foot nothing with my shoes on. After he let go of me, he gave me the grin, TM, and suggested we go back to my place, since surely I was hot and bothered. Never seen a dude look so proud of nearly choking out a munchkin since. She told me she had pretty bad anxiety being in public and asked if she could make me dinner instead. We went for a walk prior to the dinner, so we could see if we wanted to do the dinner after. She was super stoked for dinner after our walk. Dinner was great, and she asked if I wanted to watch a movie. About 20 minutes into the movie, she started nudging into me and initiated making out. After starting to really get into the heavier side of things, I felt something tap my shoulder. I'm on top of her at this point. I turned my head quickly as it startled me, and I met eye to eye with a 4 or 5-year-old boy who then asked me if he could have a cup of water. His mom starts screaming at him to go back to his room, which he runs as fast as he can back to. She starts apologizing and tries to reinitiate. I told her to give me a minute, got a cup of water, and called for him to come back out, which he did. I handed him the cup, he took a drink, said thank you, and ran back into his room. I was pretty riled up at the idea she had her kid there without saying anything, and screamed at him for asking for something so basic as water. I left after that and vowed to never be that parent with my own kids. I was out with a guy having a lovely time, and he made a comment about a copper bangle bracelet I was wearing. I told him that it was really special to me. I got it during my semester abroad in South Africa from a local. It was a solid copper band, but in the middle, there was copper wire woven around. He asked to take a closer look, so I took it off and handed it to him. He then snapped it in half, thinking the copper wire was a spring. I was visibly upset, and he said that it was a sign that I needed to move on from my trip and stop living in the past. I never spoke to him again. Literally went on a date last night and was going really well until dessert, when he said, "God, I can't wait to put kids in you." We hadn't even talked about kids at that point. I was on a date with a newly divorced woman. We were having a nice dinner and getting to know each other before it turned awkward. She didn't tell me she had kids until we were eating dinner, and she began moving things way too fast, talking about me meeting her kids right away, moving in together, etc. This was on our first date, and I didn't want to be anybody's step-parent, much less get you, Holly, so quickly. We finished our dinner and parted ways amicably after a heart-to-heart, and there were no hard feelings. She was simply getting carried away with the excitement of being single and going out with new people. She agreed that she needed to let the ink dry on her divorce a little longer and take her time before introducing new people to her children. And we fell out of contact soon after. Like the first 80% of it was a nice, awkward, but cute first date. Then at the end, she pulled out her phone and started fighting with people on Twitter and narrating all of it. It was a long drive back. Not me, but a female friend of mine was just telling me about her most recent OkCupid date. Her description went something like this. Everything was going really great. He is smart, funny, and easy to talk to. He seems like a great dad to his kids and gets along okay with his ex. Always a good sign. Just really down-to-earth guy, and it seemed like there was some nice chemistry. After dinner, we decided to go have a drink at a fun little bar about a mile away. We got in his car to drive over there. He kissed me, which was nice. Then he took out his penis. A nice guy on the outside, but turns into a total asshole in private in his desperation to get laid, which ironically enough will stop him from getting laid. Went bowling with a guy and a couple of friends. We were getting along pretty well, but when we were sitting together on my friend's turn to bowl, he put his hand on my thigh. I wasn't into physical affection from people I don't know well, and wasn't comfortable with him yet, so I politely and subtly scooched his hand away so as to not bring attention to it and embarrass him. That in itself wasn't an issue. BC, he shot his shot. Why not? My problem became when he put his hand back and gripped my leg assertively. I wasn't having it, and figured he just didn't get the hint, so I picked up his hand and moved it back to his own lap. He shot a look at me, and then dove his hand into my inner thigh, the part you touch to initiate something now, and I grabbed his wrist, pulled his hand out, and looked over at him with the most definitive no on my face I could. We did not go out again. If a man can't respect my physical boundaries in public, he sure as hell won't respect them in private. Not me, but a friend of mine. This was when we were around 22 or 23 years old. She had a first date with a guy. They were meeting at a restaurant for dinner. She gets there and sees not only him, but 2 other people at the table. Turns out he invited his parents to their date. So she, of course, excused herself to go to the bathroom and then just bounced. Talk about awkwardness. I have never laughed so hard as when she recounted her evening. This reminds me of a girl I liked at university. She was in a choir and was selling tickets to a recital, so I bought 2. She asked me who the other one was for, and I answered honestly, not thinking too much of it. Because I'm an idiot, I guess. My mother. On the day of the event, we sat and listened to her sing with the choir. Then at the intermission, I went by myself to find her, but she was nowhere to be seen. It turned out that she thought I was bringing my mother to meet her, so she feigned illness and hid. What actually happened was that the accompanying string quartet featured none other than my cousin, and my mother wanted to hear her play. If the girl was watching from her hiding place, then she likely would have seen us chatting to the cellist, with no idea what was going on. I asked a Korean exchange student during my first week of college. I had never actually done the full forward, "You want to go out" thing before, and she was gorgeous, way out of my league. My jaw dropped when she accepted. 2 days later, I picked her up at her dorm in my fairly new Mustang. She seemed quiet, and I thought it was just shyness. We were on the highway doing 55 when she suddenly rolled down the window and vomited all over the outside of the car. Like, a lot. I think she ate a gallon of vegetable soup before the date or something. I took her back to her dorm. She ran out of the car and I was left to clean things up. I took the car to a car wash, and it actually faded the paint. This was before cell phones, so I tried finding her to talk to her after that. I never saw her again. That was back in 1990, and to this day, I have no idea what happened.